On this Saturday evening, we'll be covering this epidemic of homelessness on both the East Coast and the West Coast. I escaped Portland, Oregon. Escape Portland, Oregon, the movie that hasn't been made, but probably should, right? We've seen a massive exodus also from people that have left California and they've left New York and they've gone to places like Oregon. And it has created somewhat of a affordable housing crisis, which has increased homelessness and increased people like myself moving out of our hometowns. So there's a number of different factors, economic and other, that have been affecting this homelessness epidemic. We're going to be looking at this article from Michael Schneider. He is the author of this. Let's take a look at what he has to say. And by the way, we are reading this several days after a full moon, so you might be noticing the heightened emotions. The homelessness crisis in the United States is getting a lot worse and is happening at a pace that is absolutely frightening. Did you realize that just imagine if it was you, did you realize that more than 500,000 Americans are homeless right now? 1 out of every 4 homeless Americans actually has a job, but thanks to rapidly rising housing prices, they are not able to afford a place to live. Also, I live just outside of like a town, as some of you know. I live off the grid. A lot of people look down upon that, even locally. I remember one woman, when I was working at a fast food place recently during a really bad month on YouTube, she said it was really sad that there was a real lack of affordable housing in the actual city itself, as opposed to 5 years ago and 10 years ago. A lot of people just blame it on outsiders, as I did myself when I was an Oregonian, blamed it on the outsider Californians. But it's more than that. It's the nature of our economy itself, and we're just taught to just simply blame others, that are coming to replace us, of all different types, whether it's state-to-state migration or otherwise. But there are larger factors as a result that have resulted in things like this, and things that haven't been in the news as much, like banks basically sitting on homes so the value appreciates and goes up and goes up. We've seen this in Portland, Oregon, basically zombie homes and things of that nature. So there's lots of different dynamics regarding homelessness. You also have the reality that a lot of communities and places in America don't have jobs. Not just good jobs, a lot of places lack jobs. And sometimes in today's day and age, social media doesn't help. It's not that it's solely to blame. It's that if someone has a YouTube channel or a Facebook profile or otherwise, it could be difficult. I've found myself facing complications trying to find work, and we don't always know why. But there is a misnomer, a false truth in certain areas that people don't want to work. Some people actually have their own specific standards and expectations, some that may be legal, some that may be not legal, of their employees, especially in some of these smaller communities in America. So you also have an increase in the cost of housing, where even if someone is working full-time, maybe for a sociopath somewhere at a fast food restaurant, how reasonable is it for it to be 75% of someone's wages, 80% of someone's wages, 100% of someone's wages? You know what? You better get 2 jobs. But it's also a society, mental health in America, and the connection to housing, the connection to people basically having a job, feeling respected at their job, feeling that the country has a future. We talk about people offering themselves. It's not limited to homelessness. There's stories now with children doing that to themselves as a result of cyberbullying or other things. Some children could be having also uncomfortable visions of the future, or being told that they have no future. What if they're facing homelessness themselves? What if they have family that is facing that, or some other causal factor of the system that they live in? And so people are treating mental illness, people are treating homelessness actually back and forth. They treat homelessness as mental illness instead of homelessness resulting for a lot of people in mental illness that isn't treated with drugs, nor are drugs the solution to people waking up to the fact that they have emotions and feelings, and they're feeling uncomfortable about things. And sometimes they're going to have certain feelings and emotions. And we're basically taught that those things are wrong. And so I've been around the block. I've come to see the hatred of the homeless and to see how deep-seated and mean-spirited it is, and those without money, and how modern-day relationships, unfortunately, with a lot of people in today's day and age, is really about how much money you have. And very rarely do you see values within partnerships and relationships about people working together and making something work, because life is more important than gold. Living while we're alive, instead of all this obsession on all this materialism, when we really don't need as much of that materialism as we might think in order to feel love, in order to feel life, in order to feel happy. But society has held up the sick ways of our society. People still chase unhealthy relationships. Good men and women, in many cases, are still left out in the street to rot and die, while the government masquerades, creates bigger government to purportedly help prevent people from offing themselves. I have to use code now because, see, it's considered controversial and not friendly to the advertisers when we talk about what's going on with our emotions and our heart and our feelings. Again, as this full moon comes through, we're a few days after the 24th of October. And also, we may feel the heightened emotions bringing forth to life emotions that are there, thoughts that are there, sensations that are there, things that are there in the ether, things that are there in the collective. All of a sudden, we're becoming more aware of those things. Not everybody can handle those energies, right? Not everybody, most people, including myself, we do not have real world talk therapy, where we can talk face to face. This includes myself with a member of society. Living off the grid now, I'm challenged with having to keep it together while having a lot of things that I feel. A lot of people are manipulating in today's day and age that will masquerade as friend. In this day and age, there are many people out there that spend a lot of time judging others that have less than them, and how backwards the relationships are, and how backwards the politics are, and how backwards everything, even the environmental movement, is backwards. Oh, hey, we're upholding the environment and we're talking about these things while certain things are completely not even discussed, especially by today's spiritualists. Like, hey, is there any kind of side effect from millions of people being sacrificed, basically, in one place? You don't think that can cause a little bit of pain and turmoil, not only to certain people in the society, but to people that share their DNA. There could be kind of like a trauma. Like, imagine if there were Native Americans that were watching their fellow Native Americans sacrificed in real time on YouTube. And imagine if there were Native Americans out there that were watching people in their society that were basically worshipped as gods and given money from the government. And they were literally living during the time of the persecution. Then we ask ourselves, some of us, why are we living in the time that we're living in, feeling what we're feeling as the bombs drop, as a certain amount of the population is eradicated off the face of the earth forever? We feel like, what are we doing here, left behind in this fallen realm, as people celebrate good times? Nah, let's just laugh at Trump. Hey, it's Stephen Colbert. We can do all this. He makes the Democrats look so good. And somewhere in Portland, Oregon, they're dancing the night away. Dance, dun, 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 dun. Disco's a bad example. But they are dancing the night away. They are raving away. They're talking about, oh, it's all coming down. Yo, white supremacy's coming down. Oh, Donald Trump's coming down. It's all coming down. Nothing's coming down. Nothing's been stronger than it's ever been before with regards to those lines and those systems. It is, in fact, rising. And the illusions of separation, as the death toll goes on for unknown reasons in the Middle East, without an aware population here at home to ask the questions. And then they come back, and the demons of war come back with them, and the homelessness epidemic goes up as we borrow more money for more of these wars. There's this human parasite with alien overtones in the alien human farm thing that's going on, And people are at the entry level of basically realizing that there's an epidemic of homelessness. And this is really a symptom of a symptom of a symptom of a symptom of a symptom. It doesn't even actually deal with the root cause of what's going on. So yeah, eventually you'll have a system so broken, while it thinks it's prosperous and it's building, yeah, you're seeing more and more veterans that have served in these foreign wars homeless on the streets of America. And I'm scratching my head and I'm asking myself, well, how does that happen when some of them, at the very least, are receiving benefits for what they've done? Now, we're actually going back to homelessness. There may be other reasons some people have lost their benefits if they're in the military and they have no cash coming in whatsoever, but it's the ability to actually afford something. There's plenty of veterans that have gone off grid in today's day and age, and it's probably more beneficial for people to be in a natural environment if they are to deal with any healing from PTSD. If there is to be any healing at all, I don't think there can be much healing for people that have gone overseas if there isn't some sort of soul work to deal with remorse and clearing out that energy that thought that it was right to do that, and to be more concerned with themselves than the people that they've actually oppressed, that collective, that group. There's very little of that type of spirituality healing taking place right now in Western culture. So, we have gone back to gladiator games. We have gone back to, are you entertained? And if you're not entertained, well, you'll just change to another YouTube channel. If I'm not entertaining you well enough here in Babylon, then you can just go to another channel, can't you? Because you have power now. Freedom. Yes, we're creating our reality. Yes, we are creating our reality, aren't we? And we are seeing the outcome. We are seeing the outcome in the time, in the day and age, where the New Agers and the others and the ex-girlfriends promised the 2012 collective shift in consciousness, without the explanation as to why these weapons of war continue to be developed, why we see a warped mainstream media turning people against each other, why we are seeing these ongoing sacrifices in the Middle East, and people say they're not affected, and people are offended and actually being asked questions about why they are so silent about the things that matter. And then people really have the gall to ask why. How did this happen? Oh, damn you, Donald Trump. Oh, damn you, Joe Biden. And then we have these convenient politicians, whether you're left or right, so you can just blame someone for the overall collective dead consciousness state. So people could go, well, Alex, why would you tell us that it's dead consciousness state? I think that it's all about spirituality and progressiveness. No, I think that we need to face the sickness. I don't think that we need to get on with the sickness. Come on, get down with the sick, not Kid Rock style, whatever the hell he's saying. We don't need to mainline the sickness. We don't need to confuse the sickness with God. We don't need to take some weird type of, spiritual spin on it. Oh, maybe we should just focus then on ourselves and the law of attraction to have whatever materialism that we can attract. No, how about we use some of that law of attraction ability to help make the world a better place? And so we talk about Los Angeles. He talks about Los Angeles. And San Francisco, there's all this fecal matter. They've spent millions of dollars to try to fix the problem. They're taxing the people in San Francisco. Nothing's improving. I mean, there was even an article about, and there were actually people that were living out of these little trailer things in Portland, Oregon. I remember starting to see those pop up. Like, bro, you can't stay in the house, me and my wife, but you could stay in one of these. And I'll tell you what, I didn't have to tell people on my YouTube channel that I was living in my truck. I could have just started making stuff up, and I might have had a better social life and opportunity, even jobs. And when I say it was a social experiment, let me tell you what I mean. Like, I went back to Portland, Oregon without a major plan, other than a girl that I dated briefly at the time said, hey, well, you could stay with me. But out of ego, I didn't really want to stay with her very long, especially since it wasn't romantic. So I basically got my truck legal, and I started sleeping in the back of the canopy, and I went through a social experiment, how my back not only would be responding to the back of that canopy, this is before the teardrop camper was built, how people would respond, what would be like to try to find jobs while being home free, how the cable access audience would respond to me saying that I had no place to live, whether it would just be a few weirdos that would come around as far as offering assistance, and whether the people that would be more friendly or more honorable, more legit. From their perspective, there was a sense, because they were seeing other homeless in Portland that were seeming really crazy and on serious drugs and in the era of bath salts, and already a wily look at Alex. I mean, have you ever seen his eyes when he gets really animated? It's like, whoa, it's like he's just not a normal dude. And, you know, in my opinion, I think that there was this type of, yeah, it's probably safe to profile the dude that's homeless because there's probably something else going on behind the scenes. Number two, the assumption that if someone is given the ability to have something mailed to their residence, because I was asking people for that kind of help, people wouldn't do it. And I think it was because other people may have burned them that had been homeless before. So I realized the years and years of activism actually meant nothing. It was just basically seen as a front for this deeper, elaborate homelessness, falling down the stairs person. When in reality, it was only 1 year. I got out in 2015. I ended that experiment because I changed my reality. And I chose to live the reality of saying that I was going to eventually have my own land in Colorado. And right now I want to have a reality where I have more than just isolation. But I realize it is what it is at the moment. But I feel the responsibility to continue to report on what's happening around the nation while sharing in tidbits my experience. And my experience, strength, and hope will be shared in small tidbits. But what needs to be shared now is that no one ever asked me about how I did it or what solutions could be. Or with regards to mental health, people don't want to know what are some of the root causes that people offering themselves and what are the patterns here. And when you actually start to Google, also Google that unfortunate self-inflicted event, which is a banned topic on YouTube in case you did not know, and look at the connection with new moons and full moons. And they have got the science and studies down to statistics with women and statistics with men. And when they believe they're more disposed, whether it's a full moon or a new moon, to respond to those magnetic field fluctuations by doing the unfortunate. I would say it's like we're dealing with dark age medical science, where the people's voice aren't being heard. And the government uses excuses to become bigger. Give me the poverty tax. Give me the millions of dollars. We will clean up the poo-poo. We will give them drugs for their cuckoo. But we will not create a voice. In fact, if you're not paying attention, we will take away your cable access TV show. And while it isn't that type of monotheistic conspiracy, it is like a collective entity, an entity of ignorance. Yes, we will take more from you to supposedly fix this. Like I was saying before, there is a county out there somewhere, here. And they're basically, we'll tax you to clean up this property, like tens of thousands of dollars. Instead of just pay someone just a little bit, to have them clean it up. Or to have someone private do it up. Or clean it up. But when the county does it, when the government does it, it's like they got a friend with a cleanup business. Sure, $40,000 or $60,000 or whatever to clean up this property and these bags of trash. Yeah, don't ask us why it costs that much to do that. Just, we'll ride to the rescue and allocate these millions of dollars of tax funds. And see, there are better ways in which those funds could be used to improve infrastructure. I'm not going to talk about everything that I've talked about in the past with regards to homelessness, but I have a whole separate 20-minute video where I talk about how Portland, Oregon could help talented men that are on the streets with a website sell their own wares, like eBay and social media. It could be promoted that way and in a system to where the prisoners will be making pants and license plates. Why do they not have ways for the homeless to make a few bucks doing simple work? You know how much I make living off the grid, doing what I'm doing on YouTube? Right now it's difficult, but on the AdSense, we're looking at barely 40 a week, and I need to increase that But I'm in a situation where just so I can live right below the poverty level, at least for now, it limits me to this type of experience. It limits my ability to do certain things, but I do it because I'm willing to do it, right? But it's not exactly something that is suitable for a family man or a man that would attract other people into his life, because it's a way of life that would repel most women and would repel most people. And it's not an easy way of life, and I appreciate being able to be outside of the urban city, but I know what it's like to be stuck inside the city, inside the arena of where the smog is, and all these people that are suffering in these urban environments, and it's not good for a sensitive person. Again, the things that the homeless person might experience, or a woman, there's a number of different factors. Try to keep this in mind. A lack of base of operations, place for a mailing address in a lot of cases. How many people actually want to put a homeless shelter on a job application? Showering is key, because when you're out there and you're dirty, how can someone keep it together and protect their own spirit? One key, by the way, to psychic self-defense, according to Robert Bruce, is showers. That exactly there, that spiritual people recommend showers and connecting with water. Then there are the people out there that, due to poverty and other problems, they're disconnected with basic sanitary. So enter the arena of hepatitis A, and they're recommending vaccines for the homeless. Is someone trying to mandate vaccines for the homeless? That's another story. Vaccines for the homeless because of the hepatitis A epidemic. In another article, well, they say that rents are going down at their steepest rate in a while. Yeah, because we're no longer at solar max. It's no longer in the migration wave. Where there's a high, there's a low. But it doesn't mean that people living on the streets are going to be having access then to more housing. It means that the rent came down a little bit. But there are still people living, there's poverty line, there's below poverty line, and there's below poverty line, and maybe subcategories, like people without a car, somebody with a car without insurance, without registration, who literally cannot fix their flat tire, to someone one step above it, to someone who's got registration, to someone that has insurance, to someone that has maybe an online job and a connection to the world. It's like there's different, but actually has no residence, but is still homeless, with nowhere to actually park, with nowhere to actually get mail. And then maybe one step up where they have that and they have the ability to get up. It's like there is like a sea of, and a lot of people haven't been there. And so a lot of people don't have the compassion that could possibly be in that situation tomorrow. So yeah, folks, this is what I'm bringing you on this Saturday night.